you, Daddy. Oh, you look so good.
I meant the other direction. Harrison's Hangout. Harrison on the highway.
And it is 6 p.m. Pacific Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Harrison with you. We are live from Marilyn Monroe's former apartment in West Hollywood, California. And as you'll recall on our KPFK show on 90.7 FM in Los Angeles, we've had on in the past Roseanne Barr, who announced herself as candidate for President of the United States under the Green Party. Well, she's not the only one. We have a second lady who has stepped up to the plate, and for some time now. She has shown up at various Occupy movements. She is well known for her very conscious ideas of how to recalibrate our sinking Titanic, not switching deck chairs on the ship, but actually changing the way the ship sails. I want to introduce to you Jill Stein, running for president, and she has been addressing the Green Party all over the country, in Ohio recently, everywhere else. And Jill, I want to welcome you because it's time. It is so time. There are 80 million Americans who are underemployed, probably a great deal more. That's sort of the official number, the official, unofficial number. And people are feeling endlessly hopeless. We look at these giant flesh puddings like Newt Gingrich that remind us that Jesus is the, and clearly there's got to be more than that. And I think you have the exquisite prism in which the rainbow colors of possibility are beaming out, and help us understand what the future might look like if we get to have you as the Green Party president.
Well, thank you, Harrison, and thanks so much for having me on this really awesome hangout. It is so cool to be able to see everybody and to be seen. It's really neat. And so thanks for boosting me into future technology here. So yeah, I'm running because we're really in a crisis, as you've said. We've got 25 million people who either don't have work at all or who have part-time work that doesn't support them. We've got 50 million people that don't have any health insurance and can't get the care when they need it. We are spending, about $1 trillion a year on wars that are not making us more secure. They're making us less secure. And the peace president, the winner of the Nobel Prize, has basically been following George Bush's timetable on Iraq. He would have stayed longer had he been able to negotiate immunity for soldiers there, but he couldn't, so reluctantly he's pulling them out, but not really out. They're mostly going across the border into Kuwait, and meanwhile we're expanding wars in so many other sites, and we have drone wars exploding all over the place. We have bailouts for Wall Street, massive, and layoffs for Main Street. So, we're in a crisis, and the 1% that got us here is rolling in more dough than ever, while ordinary people are really losing the shirts off their back. And the two establishment parties that got us here, the Democrats and Republicans, have not only not fixed it, but they're actually making things worse by imposing this austerity on American families while they continue to throw trillions into wars, Wall Street, and tax breaks for the wealthy. So,
Jill Stein, I'm just going to jump in because today the stock market went up another 172 points. It's almost at 13,000, while tens of millions of people are teetering on homelessness, or are indeed that. We're looking at another probably 12 million foreclosures, many of which will be in California just in the year 2012 alone. So the reality of what the economy and what life looks like for regular living, breathing humans versus this 1% that you're talking about are diametrically opposite. Yes, the yachting is fabulous off of Gasparilla Island in Florida, but most people don't live there, nor are they going to be able to go there if things continue on the course they're going. And you mentioned President Obama, the Nobel Peace Prize winner, who has really created a gift to the Pentagon in so many ways, not to mention the new bill that he signed that would allow the government to basically throw us in the slammer for an indefinite period of time without the benefit of legal representation based on, as in Germany in 1934, somebody accusing the other person of being a terrorist or a terrorist sympathizer. This was not the guy who ran for president. The candidate and the guy who's actually in the White House are different people. But I'm imagining you, Jill Stein, were you to end up in the White House, you're likely to be the same person that we're talking to right now.
I think so. You know, I am not bought and paid for by Wall Street and corporate America. So while the president left a lot of room for interpretation on his policies when he was running for office, you know, it was clear who was funding him, that he was funded by Wall Street and by big oil and big nuclear and big pharma and big insurance. So when he actually got to office, what did he do? You know, it was kiss goodbye to the public option or to single payer, which he had said, just, you know, elect me, you know, and I'll bring single payer. He didn't do it. You know, on every score, he's really abandoned and pretty much betrayed the constituents who got him where he is. And for myself, you know, running with the Green Party, I do not accept, and the Green Party does not accept, corporate campaign contributions. We don't accept PAC money or lobbyist money. I don't accept money from any money that comes with strings attached, and that is neither from lobbyists nor from CEOs of private corporations that hire lobbyists. So what you see is what you get. And the thing is, Harrison, you know, we can talk about all these wonderful solutions. You know, we talk about a Green New Deal that would actually put all of those 25 million people back to work. It would eliminate unemployment. It would put an end to the Bush-Obama recession. We can talk about a single-payer Medicare for all health care plan that would provide health care as a human right to everyone, that also saves us trillions of dollars at the same time, while it puts consumers back in charge of their health decisions instead of insurance executives that are looking to make a profit. We can talk about downsizing the military and bringing the troops home now, and having a foreign policy based on human rights and on international law. These are all things that the American public actually supports. We don't have to persuade people. We just have to get heard, and we have to get the word out that people actually have a choice. And we've been told for so long, you can't do that, just be quiet and, you know, keep your mouth shut, vote for the lesser evil, and just hang on, you know, let's be quiet. But we've been there and we've done that now for at least 10 years, long enough to show that silence is not an effective political strategy, and that the politics of fear has actually brought us everything that we've been afraid of. So it's time to regain our voice for those of us who really speak on behalf of the public interest, who are not bought and paid for by Wall Street. It's time for us to stand up and to occupy the voting booth and actually start moving us forward, whether we are 2% or 52% of the vote. Everything changes when we begin to stand up. We can no longer be ignored, and we can start to advance those solutions that the majority of the American public is already convinced and very much wants.
Harrison with you. It is about 9 minutes past the hour. Actually, it is exactly 9 minutes past the hour because we use digital clocks here, despite the analog clocks that adorn me that you can't see because I've hidden them from your view. We're using very modern technology and visiting with Jill Stein. Jill Stein is the Green Party presidential candidate. Dr. Stein, as a matter of fact, especially interested in the evergreen cooperatives for providing one successful model among many of how economic democracy can actually provide employment, prosperity, all this for stressed communities. And in her recent People's State of the Union address, Jill Stein, who's with us right now, right here, right now, called for a Green New Deal, providing for full employment, for an immediate transition to a sustainable, more democratic economy. And these evergreen cooperatives are pioneering innovative models of job creation, she says, for wealth building, for sustainability, and are employee-owned for-profit companies, which for-profit companies are based locally and hire locally. In a town that I grew up in, Chicago, the railroad there, the Chicago Northwestern, was employee-owned, and you actually got great service. For those of you who might be more mature in the spectrum of humanity, you might remember Eastern Airlines. That was employee-owned, and you got really nice service on there. There's something to be said about having a profit shared throughout the system. People actually suit up and show up, provide good service, and as the customer, Jill Stein, you also know that it's going to be reliable service. It's not that hard. We're going to open up the phones here so you can also talk to presidential candidate Jill Stein, 310-737-TALK, 310-737-TALK. And let me ask you a question, Jill, that I think has been on everybody's mind. It's not about you personally, but you are the one doing something slightly different here. How is it that you see so clearly what everyone's need is, and all these other candidates for the GOP, for the Democratic Party, how they completely and obliviously sidestep and avoid these very fundamental notions that you're talking about? Is it that you see something that isn't really there, the emperor's new clothes, or have you literally whipped open the raincoat of truth to expose embarrassingly meager equipment concealed beneath? Their equipment, that is.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, where to start? You know, I got into this as a mother and a medical doctor, seeing things were really, really wrong in our healthcare system, which is failing people, and wrong for our health too, and that the environment is making us sick by way of asthma, obesity, diabetes, these epidemics that we're seeing that we didn't used to have. And I thought, well, gee, they just need to know that there are all these, you know, all these really cost-effective win-win solutions that improve our environment, that create jobs, that make us healthier, that there are really good ways out of this mess. And I thought, you know, here I am as a doctor, I'll just go talk to our legislators and, you know, clue them in. We don't need these incinerators. We can actually recycle this material and create a lot of jobs while we're at it. That we will be keeping the air clean and our water supply clean and all that. You know, and you learn once you go into this that it doesn't matter that there are really great win-win solutions that help us all around. Jobs, the environment, stopping climate change. There are so many ways that we can solve the problems that we're facing and benefit and prosper, but they don't get it. So after you do this for a while, you realize the reason they don't get it is they're paid not to get it. That they come to office, you know, on these campaign contributions and these lobbyist favors that they're required to fulfill. So they get elected on this money and they need to pay back. So it's like you realize after a while that we can't fix these problems without also fixing the system that keeps us locked into these lose-lose policies that are part of a pay-to-play politics. So we basically just have to change the pay-to-play politics at the same time that we get health care that we can actually afford, and that we actually create jobs that make our communities healthier instead of making them sicker, and that also prevent climate change at the same time. So there's a win-win here that saves us a huge amount of money as well. It doesn't cost us, it actually saves us, and we can win that, but we've got to take our democracy back in order to do it.
You know, it's interesting, Jill Stein, as we talk to you, as you run for President of the United States, as you reveal that you are a physician, which means that you will have taken the Hippocratic Oath, which means that your oath was to do no harm, much like Dr. Howard Dean certainly seemed like a very bright light in a sea of low lumens. You likewise seem like a very bright light in a sea of adipose tissue. If you look at the Republican candidates, it's a miracle of mirth and puffiness from one side to the other. These guys are incredible performance artists, I have to say. It's word salad, it's nonsense, but by God, it feels believable. When you declare that the earth is actually flat, and we've known this all along, and recent science proves this, and we've got an industry that supports that very argument, et cetera, people by the millions tend to believe this because there doesn't seem to be any contravening information. Days of a Walter Cronkite or even a Howard Beale from network standing up and saying this is crap, this is nonsense, those voices aren't heard. So for somebody like you who can say, look, basic science, a cell, put poison on it, it dies. This seems like it's radical stuff, but we all know it's true. And yet your voice is not the highest voice where it ought to be. It tends to be pushed out of the way because, as we all know, covering a cell in unrefined oil gunk is actually good for it.
Yeah, and I think you've put your finger on it. People have drilled into them over and over that we have no choice, that we have to cut programs, that we have to cut Social Security and Medicare, and that health insurance.
It looks like Dr. Jill Stein, whom we have on here right now on our Harrison's Hangout on GoHarrison.com. We are using our incredible new technology.
Incredible.
And there you are. You're back.
I'm back. I'm quick on the trigger.
You are. You and the Google Corporation are one.
Yeah, but you asked a great question, and I wanted to just complete that thought that that people get drilled into them over and over, because God forbid, that people should actually hear what they already want, which is real common sense solutions, which is that we can, we can create jobs and actually grow our way out of this recession. We can do it quickly. We can combat climate change at the same time that we transition to a prosperous economy. They are very much afraid of the word getting out, because it is powerful, because it is a truth that already resonates with people. When I ran for governor in Massachusetts for the first time, and they made the mistake of allowing me into the debates, they had to take me out of the debates because I was being declared winner, and on the instant online viewer polls, I was winning the one poll that there was. So they had to take me out because it was very dangerous. They were going to get another Jesse Ventura kind of victory. It was Jesse Ventura who shot up from like 4% to, like 40% in the polls once
right.
People got to hear common sense and basic, common good solutions. So that's why your role, I think is so critical, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart for being, the real media of the people, the media for the 99%, because it really does depend on the internet. They didn't throw off dictators in Tunisia and in Egypt through state-run, corporate-sponsored media. It really took alternative media, and we can do great things, and I think we're beginning to do that.
You're absolutely right, Jill Stein. You're absolutely right about all the compliments you gave me, by the way. But more than that, what's kind of interesting here is that we are not doing anything exceptional. We're doing what everyone else ought to be doing and ought to have been doing all along. We're simply presenting information which is now declared alternative information. But you're running for President of the United States, e pluribus unum. You ought to be on CNN every night. You ought to be on Fox News. You ought to be on MSNBC constantly, on current TV all the time. But instead, we somehow have, again, it's about the opposing voices, but their megaphone is so loud that you get to be declared some kind of alternative thinker. And your thinking is pretty basic. Gee, Americans ought to have jobs. If they have jobs, they could become each other's customer and thereby spending money, and that way all the ships are rising. Basic stuff. Why, if somebody gets a cut, we put a Band-Aid on it so they don't exsanguinate all over the floor and then somebody slips and breaks their hip. basic thinking. But all this seems so novel and so radical because the word radical is declared when put next to you so that you seem like you've got this weird kind of thinking. Yet yours is so mainstream. You go to the rest of the residents of Earth, the 7 billion people you go throughout Europe, and they're like, yeah, well, that makes sense to me. Here it's like, really? You mean a doctor treating somebody without billing them to the point where they become homeless? Why, that's terrible.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, these are common sense solutions, and it's dangerous for people to be able to hear them because if they do, things will really begin to change. Our proposal for creating jobs, the so-called Green New Deal, would put 25 million people back to work, and it would be work both in the private sector and in the public sector where private jobs cannot create the employment that we need. Then government would step in, but not Big Brother national government. Rather, this would be nationally funded but locally controlled so that communities can decide what kind of projects they need, what kind of infrastructure do they need to convert their vacant homes, their abandoned housing, for example, of which we have, over 10 million homes right now. We have more vacant homes than we have homeless people. And we could be converting that as part of a public project to actually meet our needs and make our communities sustainable. That's why we call it a Green New Deal, because it makes us sustainable not only environmentally, but also ecologically, socially, and economically. We need to be sustainable in all of those ways in order to be truly sustainable. And I'll just mention one other thing about this, which is that, we badly need to be conserving energy now. The minute we do that, we no longer need these wars for oil. They become obsolete. And the biggest energy gains that we can make, starting right now, which don't require new technology, is basically to weatherize our homes and our businesses and our school buildings. And we can do that for less cost than it would require to increase any other form of energy. And there are literally millions of jobs that can be created in weatherization projects right now, jobs in relocalizing our agriculture and providing secure, good nutrition and food security in our communities, jobs in public transportation and active transportation, as well as in clean manufacturing. And the exciting thing is, this is the ringer that is always beneath the radar. If we do what's right for the economy and the environment, it's also what's right for our health. And we know we're spending about $1 trillion a year now in government-sponsored health care. And of that $1 trillion, it turns out that 75% is being spent on diseases that are avoidable, that is preventable. How? By having good nutrition, by working exercise and activity into the way that our communities are structured. That is public transportation that also provides for biking and safe sidewalks, that lets people be active on their way to work, like in Copenhagen, where 50% of people bike to get to their job, lets kids walk to school. By creating an active transportation system and a healthy nutrition system, we also basically cut down to size our healthcare expenses too. So this really is a win-win scenario that creates jobs, makes us healthier, and saves us a ton of money. And we don't need to wait for some new technology. It's here right now.
Well, you're right. It's such common sense, but I guess I'm just endlessly agog and constantly beating the dead horse of what's the payoff not to do it. And when we identify there is a payoff not to do it, this is so doable. There's 307 million Americans. We've got more friggin' drone weapons in a Pentagon that's got a backbone, the largest oil consumer on Earth. I mean, we can do whatever we want. Poof, it's magic. But it's a conspicuous, concerted choice not to do this because there's some serious payoff not to do what you're talking about. And let's look at that. What is that payoff? Because remember, the average civilian isn't going to get why what you're talking about first of all, it seems so impossible, or it would already be happening. But there's a reason. At every step of the way, the carpet's been pulled out of these really basic things. What is the payoff not to do the right thing?
Exactly. I mean, we know what that payoff is. That payoff is that the campaign war chest continues to be filled by, by the usual suspects, by the big banks, by the financial services industry, by health insurance, by big coal and big oil and big nuclear, the usual suspects, which are continuing to fill not only the campaign coffers but now also the super PACs. So you've got Romney's super PAC, which is funded by the hedge fund managers. You've got the Santorum super PAC, which is filled by the mutual fund magnate. You have the Gingrich super PAC, which is filled by the casino magnate. And the Republican primary is such a poster child for control by big money. So with the flick of a pen, suddenly Gingrich has $10 million from the casino industry, and he can strike back at Romney. So what you see really is this shootout among the billionaires for who's going to control, the spoils of the Republican primary. And it's so clear, Harrison, isn't it? It's just as clear as day that if we're ever going to fix these problems which have really come home to roost, students who are up to their eyeballs in debt, who are basically now indentured servants, because they don't have jobs. Their unemployment rate is twice that of the general population, or the community of color, where young people under age 24 have an unemployment rate now of 30%. So young people and disadvantaged who've tried to come up through the college system or through community colleges to do the right thing, to get educated so they can get ahead and make a future for themselves. They're basically indentured servants now, and this just doesn't work. To fix that, we've also got to fix the system. So, I want to encourage people to go to my website, which is jillstein.org, and sign on and become part of the team, because we are intending, to break through as much as we can in this race, and I wouldn't rule out that unexpected things may happen, because we are teetering on the brink in more ways than one. Whether you're looking at a nuclear blow-up, we could have another Fukushima, or another blowout of the economy, etc.
You hit something near and dear, I think, to a lot of our hearts. Not only Fukushima and the terrific, unending afterglow of that, but here at our own San Onofre plant, just 2 weeks ago, the thing was spewing tritium. In northern Illinois, the plant up there was doing the same thing. I mean, this is really scary. It is so out of control. And if it is not reported, like a tree falling in the woods, does it make a sound? Well, if nobody witnessed it, who cares? It's kind of the same thing. And it just pains me that, when physicians have to step up to run for president, I know that wasn't meant in any way to be a disparaging remark, but when friggin' physicians have to leave the clinic to go run for president to try to fix stuff, it says something amazing to me.
Exactly. And I don't know if you're aware, there is a study which hasn't gotten much press, but it's a very good and compelling study. You can imagine why the nuclear industry doesn't want this study surfacing. This came out of France, and it's been part of a many-year study now. This was its second phase, which actually underscores the findings of the first phase, so it's pretty well established now. What they found basically was a doubling of childhood leukemia in proximity to the best, safest nuclear power plants around. France has a state-of-the-art system of nuclear power plants. They're highly reliant on it, and this is a modern generation of nuclear power. And yet, even around France's plants, where there are no reported leaks, there is now a well-documented doubling of childhood leukemia. So it's, you know, it's pretty clear that these plants, even under the best of circumstances, are not safe. We should not have them. They should be phased out, especially at San Onofre. You're on a fault too, right? You're on a big earthquake.
Oh, the fault
So, I
is
mean, it's just
huge.
nuts that these plants are allowed to continue, and in fact, they're also talking about relicensing them even after they have lived out their expected lifespan for which they've been constructed. So, you know, this is more just big money politics as usual playing out on Capitol Hill and in our capitals around the country. And what you said about a physician being forced, you know, I consider myself now practicing political medicine. People ask me what kind of medicine I practice, and I say I'm practicing political medicine because it's the mother of all illnesses. Until we fix this very corrupt and sick political system, it's just not possible for us to fix our health, our jobs, our education system, and our climate future. All of these things which can actually be fixed at the same time we create jobs and save money, you know, they're just not going to do it. We need to take it upon ourselves. And I felt like the opportunity came to me to do it to where I couldn't say no. And believe me, not in my wildest nightmares had I ever dreamed about doing this, but I felt like the Green Party needed to step up to the plate because we are the only opposition party that still has ballot status in this era of very repressive politics that takes opposition voices off the ballot and away from the microphone, censors us, fear campaigns and smear campaigns against independent voices. The Green Party is the one survivor that's left standing. So when the you know, the business hit the fan last spring and Social Security and Medicare were being put on the table, many of us felt this was just unconscionable for the Green Party, the one option to really run an opposition candidate. If we didn't take it, then you know, we would have our consciences to live with forever. So we're here to help provide a vehicle for all of us to join together and be that voice of opposition, as people are doing out in the street right now. You know, from the opposition, the uprisings in Wisconsin, to the 99% Wall Street occupations all over the country. You know, people are standing up, and we need a social movement, and we also need an electoral movement. If we don't have an electoral movement, you know, we've missed a huge opportunity to grow and strengthen that social movement, which is what's going to get us out of this, you know, this tailspin that we're in. It's really important for all of us to step up to the plate and do what we can.
Harrison with you. We are talking to Jill Stein and wrapping up a conversation with her. She is running for president for the Green Party. Website jillstein.org, jillstein.org, which you see at the top of your screen. And she can be easily accessed. All you need, Google her name. Infinite pages will come up. She also is in a position to receive whatever makes sense to you, whatever is comfortable for you, to help propel this idea of a solution rather than somebody perpetuating the problem. The current, let's just call them commercial candidates, are simply going to reinvest into a system that is bringing down the populace. And she, as a physician, sees the wound and is simply going to treat it and bring it back to a healthy piece of tissue, the tissue being you and I at large. So I vote yes for you, Jill. I'm so glad that you, like Dr. Helen Caldicott of Australia, have realized that this thing is metastasizing into something so cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs that you actually have to leave the clinic and create, as you put it, political medicine so that we can have basic access to you know, a healthy solution when there's nothing but gasbaggery going on from left to right, and somewhere in the smart center is you. People would assume that you're somehow on the left, but really you stand for 2 and 2 actually equals 4, rather than 2 and 2 equals the world is flat.
Very well said. And I think, you know, We are in this perfect storm right now because it is the big wake-up time. People are losing their jobs and their health care and their homes and their pensions and affordable higher education and our civil liberties. You know, it's like, what more do we have to lose? Probably a whole lot more, but let's not go there. It's bad enough right now as it is, and it doesn't need to be, because that 1% is rolling in dough. We need a politics for the 99%, for everyday people, and this is that big wake-up moment. It is the perfect storm. It's at a time when people by the droves are peeling away from the establishment parties, millions of people in unprecedented numbers, and it's a political race for president. This is truly that perfect storm to demand, to take back this promise of our democracy and a peaceful, just, green future that really is within our reach. We can get there if we do it together.
Thank you so much, Jill Stein, and maybe we can cook up a fundraiser for you using some of our modern technology that would be fun and frisky, and you get to stay in your living room. It's kind of a beautiful thing, and we don't have to leave ours, because as we've learned in current politics, one should never actually have to be in the company of another one in real life. It's much better never to have a civil society. I'm just so kidding. This would be a wonderful way for all of us to reach out with our digits and our binomial equations and interfresticate with each other in a positive political way, and reinforce the idea that this is Hotel Earth and everyone gets a room. Basic common sense. Thank you so much for running for president. We will stay in touch. We're so glad that you joined us today. Your website, jillstein.org. And one last sentence before we click the button that makes it all go away here.
I think if I can quote Alice Walker, the African-American novelist, who said, the biggest way that people give up power is by not knowing they have it to start with. We do have it. It's time to step up and reclaim it. There is a peaceful, just, green future that is within our reach, and it's time to take it back. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jill Stein. Thank you, Billy Foster, our Minister of All Things Technical. He's in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm in Los Angeles, California. You are wherever you are. And we want to thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget, every Monday from 3 to 4 Pacific time, that would be 5 to 6 Eastern, is the Smart Show on KPFK 90.7 FM in Los Angeles, 98.7 FM in Santa Barbara, 93.7 in San Diego, 99.5 in Central California. Plus, we're going to begin a live program on the Progressive Radio Network on Thursdays at 5 p.m. Eastern. That's going to be coming up in the next couple of weeks, and we'll announce the when and the where and the what of that. I also want to thank Garrett Ritt, our producer, for having gotten Jill Stein, presidential candidate for the Green Party, and helping her become available to you. And that's really kind of the important part, is that we are the mainstream media. Despite what the mainstream media likes to imagine is going on, they do have their little tiny range of motion. Ours is vast and all-encompassing. Thanks again, Jill Stein. Thank you, everybody. And we'll see you weeknights, as we do here, 6 p.m. Pacific time on our Harrison's Hangout, part of the smartshow.org.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
I hope you had fun.
Yeah, that was really a blast. I'm going to have to learn how to use this. Thanks so much, Billy.
Isn't it cool?
It is awesome. Yeah. This
Thank
is
you
definitely
again.
the way to go. No more
Yes.
phone meetings.
Right? No, I mean, you can actually, communicate with people and show them things and be like, hey, look, this is what we're going to come up with. And, it's awesome. I mean,
It totally
again, I'm here in Phoenix and he's out in LA, and this is how we do a lot of our work. So
That is awesome. Thank you so much. You
Sure.
take care. Have a
All
good
right,
night.
bye-bye.
Bye-bye.